we move on to our very next speaker. So India is not known for open source projects, and there are very few projects, open source projects that are run from India. Probably you can count them on your fingertips. So very few people, and probably nobody has been as successful as Dr. Kovid Goyal. Kovid runs, so I don't know whether, I didn't ask him whether I should address it as Dr. Kovid or it's Kovid. Okay. So Dr. Kovid, he runs an ebook management software called Calibre, which some of you may have used. It helps you create ebooks, manage ebooks. It has a library component, and it is by far the market leader for if you're looking for an ebook management software or creating software. You can convert documents from any format to any other format using Calibre, and it has more than 3 million active users. And I think it is with pride that and real honor to have Dr. Kovid speak to us today and share his open source experience. So thank you. Just start that.
Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, so after the great talk that Jordan gave us about various principles on making open source projects work, I'm going to share my individual experience with one particular open source project in more detail. So hopefully that will complement what he said. As Rishabh said, I'm the principal developer of Calibre, and Calibre is the one-stop solution to all your ebook needs. At least that's our aim. So let me start by giving you some idea of the scale of Calibre, what I mean by a large open source project. So it has 3.5 million active users. It's used in over 200 different countries. It has existed for 10 years now, and these are the sort of technical details: 500,000 lines of code, 31,000 commits, and most importantly, 35,000 bug reports. So as Jordan said, communication is key, and one of the main ways that we communicate with our users is through bug reports. In fact, apart from being the principal developer, I also am the principal bug triage person. So whenever a bug report comes in, I'm the first person who handles it. And you might think that that's a role that somebody else should do rather than the principal developer, but in my opinion, that's one of the most important things you need to do in an open source project. Okay, so let's see. So that's a screenshot of Calibre with a picture of Don Quixote. So I just, because many people think that open source is a quixotic endeavor. So anyway, that's what Calibre looks like. And the key thing about Calibre, its USP, its selling point is that it is by readers for readers. So I myself am somebody who loves to read. I read 100 books a year, and almost all of Calibre's contributors are all themselves people who love to read. And as people who love to read, we decided to create something that helps us achieve, helps us make reading more pleasurable, more efficient, more fun. So I'll give you a brief overview of Calibre's major features, just to give you an idea. So there's library management. You can manage a whole collection of books. You can tag them. You can download the metadata. You can convert them to different formats. So the conversion bit is, I think there are now about some 25 different formats that you can convert from and to. You can sync to different reader devices. So when Calibre first started, there were these dedicated e-ink readers. Came from Sony, was the first one. And today now there are, I think, over 50 or 75 devices, something like that Calibre can talk to successfully. And of course, every single phone and tablet and so on. But about 75 dedicated e-ink reader devices. You can download news from the web. So Calibre has this feature that has something called recipes, which are sort of small pieces of code that allow you to scrape a website and convert it into an ebook. So when I first started working on this, I used to subscribe to Newsweek, and for some reason, there was some mess up in their office, and they stopped delivering the paper copy of Newsweek to my house. And I called them, I yelled at them, they just refused to fix it. So I decided to write a component in Calibre that went to the website and downloaded the publicly available articles from the website. And today there are over 1,000 such recipes, we call them, that allow you to download news from various websites and make it and read it on your device. There's an ebook viewer which can view every single ebook format ever created, and there's an editor which allows people to edit books. So one of the things that readers love to do, one of the great features of ebooks is that they allow you to customize the reading experience. So for example, if you have weak eyesight, which many older people do, you can increase the font size. You can change the formatting, and surprisingly, there are a large number of people who actually go out and do this. So the editor helps you do these kind of things. So there's a content server, and that's again what Jordan said, reacting to market direction, adapting to current trends. So the content server allows you to make your ebook collection available, on your phone, on your tablet, whatever. So some history. So Sony was the first company that released an e-ink reader in the US. It was in 2006, and at the time I was a grad student at Caltech. I was actually a physicist, but I love to read. So I bought myself this ebook reader because I thought I'd read books on it. But I used to use Linux. I still do. And the Sony reader used a proprietary USB protocol that did not work with Linux. So I joined this community, mobileread.com, and with the help of fellow enthusiasts there, we reverse engineered the USB protocol of the reader, and we wrote a driver that allowed us to connect to it in Linux. And that was the start of Calibre. So it was called libprs 500 at the time. And Sony not only had a custom USB protocol, they also had a custom ebook format called LRF, which was proprietary, which was also reverse engineered. That allowed us to convert books that we already had in, say, from the Project Gutenberg or other old ebook sources into the format LRF and read it on our readers. So then, that went on for a few years, and at the time it was just a hobby. Like Jordan said, I used to come back in the evenings after grad school and spend a few hours on it. And at some point I stuck a little donate button on the website, and I said, okay, maybe I'll get enough money for a pizza a week or something. And it actually grew much more than I ever dreamt it would. And around 2008, I decided that libprs 500 wasn't a marketing-friendly name, so we decided to rename it to Calibre and add the library management features, GUI, and so on. And since then, it has been released weekly. So there's a saying that you release often, release early. So Calibre is released once a week. There have been about 400 releases to date. So that's the history of Calibre. Let me talk a little bit about making it sustainable. So I know Jordan said that code is the least important feature of making an open source project successful, but I have to disagree with him a little bit there. So in order to encourage contributions, one of the key things that you can do is make the development experience as painless and as easy as possible. So part of that is choosing a developer-friendly language, which Calibre is written in Python. Create a simple development environment. So for example, you can set up a development environment to work on Calibre just by entering 2 commands on your computer. It downloads the source from GitHub and sets up a development environment. Then the other thing is you have to design your code well, make it modular, make it easy to follow, easy to get into, easy to understand. The easier it is, the more contributions you'll have. So in Calibre, the modular design is expressed as plugins. So all the features of Calibre are implemented as sort of standalone plugins. The core Calibre product itself has 340 built-in plugins, and these plugins are used, like I mentioned, for news downloads. They're called recipes. The device drivers are all individual plugins. Each conversion format has its own input and output plugin. The user interface itself, in fact, is based on plugins, and people can write third-party plugins to add elements to the Calibre user interface. And there are hundreds of third-party plugins for Calibre. Another really important feature in open source projects that many of them lack is comprehensive documentation. So, I mentioned the 35,000 bug reports, and a lot of those bug reports are simply because people don't know how to do something that they actually can do. And so documentation really helps with that. I know many people think that documentation is useless and people don't actually read it, but that's not true. People actually do read documentation. And even when people don't read it and they ask you questions that have been already answered, being able to point to existing documentation as an answer is much more efficient than having to explain the same thing over and over again. Automation. So, I'm the primary developer of Calibre. I've written most of the code. I run the weekly build process myself, and I do most of the bug triage. And the thing that allows me to do all that is that I use a lot of automation. So the Calibre release process is literally, I type a single command into my computer, press enter, and 1 hour later, Calibre is released for 7 different platforms. Similarly, bug triage, I have set up a sort of workflow for myself that allows me to answer common bug reports with just a few keystrokes. And then tests. Having tests for your code is really important because in open source projects, you get a lot of contributions from all sorts of people, some of whom may be great people, some of whom may not. And you want to encourage them by accepting their contributions. And what gives you the confidence to accept their contributions is having lots of tests. So you can see if their contributions, if the code that they contributed breaks some existing functionality or not. So these are sort of the code-related things that you should keep in mind when you're developing an open source project. So just an overview of Calibre's commit history. So you can see from 2006 to 2015. The interesting thing here is the last line, the long tail. There's about 150 sort of individuals who have contributed about 11% of the commits to Calibre's code base. And these all tend to be small one-off things. Some developer uses Calibre and does something that wrong, or he discovers a small bug, or he discovers some small feature he wants, and he makes a one-off commit, pull request, which I then merge into the Calibre code base. And you can see the core Calibre developers that contribute 90% of the code, but that long tail is really important because that's what gives your product the polish, because that's actually users of your product contributing to its development. And finally, a lot of questions Jordan got about income, so let me share Calibre's income story. So like I said, to start with, I just put up a simple, donate button on the Calibre download website, and I used to get maybe, 4 or 5 donations a week. But as Calibre itself grew and became more popular and better, the amount of donations increased. And in addition to donations, I added a couple of AdSense ads to the Calibre website. And the final source of income is affiliates. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So to expand on how the donations work in Calibre, we have over 100,000 people to date have donated. And about 20% of the donations are repeat donations. That means they're donations from somebody who has already donated before. One of the important things to keep in mind is that many open source projects feel hesitant to ask for donations. Some people think it's like begging, or you feel shy to do it. So it's really important to get over that attitude and to realize that donations are what is going to make your project sustainable in the long run. So for example, in Calibre, in the application itself, when you first start it up, there's a little beating heart that beats for 5 seconds. And you can click on it to make a donation to Calibre. Similarly, on the download page, every time you download an update to Calibre, there's a button there asking you to donate and support the development of Calibre. Similarly, in the content server, there's a little button that you can click. And all this makes a difference. So for example, initially when I just had the website-based donate button, and then I added the in-application donate button, the little throbbing heart, that raised donations by about 30%. So it makes a difference. You might think that it's tacky or you feel shy about it, but it really does make a difference, and it's really worth doing. So now I'll talk about a little bit about AdSense. So once your project is successful, as Jordan said, you don't have to worry that much about money. So for example, Calibre's website is ranked 9,000 in the world by traffic. And when you have that level of traffic, your AdSense income is automatically fairly large. I wouldn't say it's large enough to sustain like a business with hundreds of employees, but it's fairly large for a efficient and small organization. And the final source of income is affiliates. So one of the Calibre features is that it has a sort of price comparison button. You click Get Books and you type in the title and author of a book, and it'll search various web stores, rank the results by price. And so when you click on one of those links to buy it, Calibre gets a small fraction of the sale. So that is, and the interesting thing about this is that most of this affiliate income does not come to me. It comes to other Calibre contributors. So the Get Books system, just like the rest of Calibre, is based on plugins. And so each person that contributes a plugin for an individual store gets to get the lion's share of that affiliate income from that store. So there's some way of spreading the income from Calibre to other developers that contribute to Calibre, not just to me. Let me talk a little bit about Calibre's community. So it started on a website called mobileread.com, which is focused on reading on mobiles. So there have been over 300,000 posts in the Calibre forums on mobileread.com. And really, I was very lucky. I stumbled onto this community. It predates Calibre. And I became part of this community. And this pre-existing community was one of the main resources that allowed Calibre to develop. So there were many people there who contributed code, who contributed bug reports, feature requests, and all that interaction is really what makes Calibre successful today. And lots of documentation. So if you print out, the Calibre user manual is available in PDF, and if you print it out, it's 405 pages long. It's translated into 38 languages. A feature I added just a few months ago was the ability to have custom icon themes to Calibre, and Calibre users have contributed 9 icon themes in just a few months. So it just goes to show that there is a lot of enthusiasm in the community to contribute if you make it easy for them to do so. Similarly, there are 103 third-party plugins that add all sorts of features to Calibre. They make integration with devices better. They add functionality like searching for duplicates based on various algorithms, all sorts of things. And there are over 1,000 news recipes that allow you to download news from various websites, and these are all contributed and maintained by Calibre users. So that's all I really have to say, and I'd be happy to answer questions, which is what I hope is the main part of this talk.
Thank you, Kovid, for a very insightful and enlightening talk. A really interesting journey from starting. So I have a question. Did you ever think of doing this as a business versus a hobby?
So it is a business for me now. I work full-time on Calibre. I have been working full-time on Calibre for 6 years now. Mm-hmm. It's a one-person business, but my livelihood and my family's livelihood depends on Calibre. So it is. At some point, I started out with it as a hobby. It was just something I did in the evenings. But it grew. It became popular. I realized that it has a lot of value, and as that happened, I decided to make it a full-time occupation. So I don't like having employees. I could actually afford to employ people, but I just don't like having employees. I don't like dealing with the overhead. So I prefer to have voluntary contributors who I interact with.
That's a very interesting thing, because one trend we've been seeing, a lot of people ask, is ERP next done by like 8 people? Mm-hmm. And it's just the whole thing that the expectation when you run a large project like Calibre is that there is a team behind it. Mm-hmm. And then when you realize that, like you showed that like 4 or 5 key contributors are doing a lot of the work. So, so does it change the perception of how people look at Calibre, or saying, or since it's more consumer driven, they really don't care?
Yeah, most of Calibre's users are readers, not developers. Mm-hmm. So most readers don't ever visit its GitHub page and see how many contributors it has or things like that. Most people just download it and see if it does what they want it to do. That's it. But like Jordan was saying, when he visits a GitHub project, the first thing you do is you check out the pulse, the heartbeat, the number of commits, the number of contributors, the traffic on the mailing list. So all that is pretty active in Calibre. Calibre has several hundred commits every week, several hundred forum posts. It doesn't use up the mailing list, but it uses the forum.
So do you answer close to 1,000 emails a day?
No, I can't imagine how anyone would do that. The highest I've gone to is about 100 a day. So.
And since you're in ebooks, what do you think is the future of ebooks?
I don't know. I hope that ebooks will be with us for a long time, and I think that eventually all reading will transition to ebooks. All book reading will transition to ebooks. Of course, in the modern world, there are many different kinds of reading. There's you read blogs, you read websites, you read things like a Facebook feed. So there are many different kinds of reading. But for a number of people that like to read books, novels, reference books, I think that kind of reading will all transition to ebooks eventually. Right now, the various big ebook publishers are shooting themselves in the foot by making ebooks more expensive than they need to be. So that's slowing down ebook adoption, but that will change with time, I hope.
And with your user community, I mean, is your development driven by the creator community or by the reader community?
It's by the reader community. I mean, so like I said, Calibre is by readers for readers. The driving principle of Calibre is to make reading a pleasure. So everything that I do in Calibre, everything that everyone does in Calibre is towards the goal of making reading more pleasurable, long-form reading more pleasurable. So yeah, it's driven mostly by readers. So what typically happens is somebody will use Calibre and will find some aspect of Calibre that could be improved that doesn't suit his workflow. He'll open a bug report requesting the feature, and somebody will, 9 times out of 10, somebody will implement that feature or point a workaround or something. So Calibre's development is entirely user-driven, entirely driven by its users, by readers. There is no, like I, for example, don't sort of say, okay, now I think that this is a good direction to go, and just go there. I'm mostly driven by interaction, feedback from Calibre users. Of course, it does happen sometimes that there is some cool feature that I want myself and I implement it, but most of my development is guided by my users.
Okay, thanks. Open up for questions. Yeah.
So, Kovid, you said there are like hundreds of commits every week, right? So, like before you kind of roll out a new release or a new build, all those commits are going through.
So, like I said,
validating
so we use a lot of tests, automated tests.
Okay.
So before every release, I run the full test suite on various platforms. I use virtual machines, VirtualBox machines, so which give you various operating systems. I run the tests on all those systems and make the release. And the other thing is that with a frequent early release model, like Calibre has, releasing weekly, even if a bug creeps in, it gets fixed very fast. And in fact, I found that users are actually happy when there's a bug as long as it's fixed fast. They understand that everyone makes mistakes. And, bad things can happen. But if you respond fast, you respond well, you fix the bug, and a week later the fix is there for them to use. That makes them really happy. It makes them much happier than they would have been if there had been no bug in the first place. So, yeah.
So I enjoyed your talk. Thank you. That was very interesting. And I find the donation model to be particularly fascinating because of the way that there's a sort of a one-to-one relationship with it. And how do you handle feedback from other contributors who say, "Hey, I'd like some money too, please"?
That is a obvious concern because I like to encourage other contributors to work as much on Calibre as possible for them. So like I said, one of the ways I do that is with the Get Books system. So several of Calibre's key contributors have plugins for the various Amazon US and EU stores. Amazon for some reason has separate stores in every country. So all the affiliate income from that, not all, but most of the affiliate income from that goes to the person who writes the plugin. So so several of the Calibre key contributors get some income from that program. And that's not enough for them to work full time on Calibre. But they do feel a sense of reward that that their work has some monetary compensation, not just open source.
Well, let me extend the question. So let's say that you're collecting $150,000 a year, and that's kind of a senior engineer salary. So if you published your books every year, most people would just nod their heads and say, "Yeah, okay, so that's a full-time job, and you could get the same or better working for Facebook or Google or something. So that's fine." But let's say that you started pulling in $1 million a year. Do you think that donation model would still be as powerful?
No, at that point I'd have to do something foundation-like, I suppose. I'd have to set up I'd have to either stop asking for donations or set up some sort of organization. Fortunately, I've never reached that stage. So, but yeah, I mean, sure. If I start getting $1 million a year in donations, then yeah, I'll have to do something different.
Is your donations from normal users, like
yes,
everyday users? Any company is behind it?
No, there are no corporate sponsors for Calibre. They're all everyday users. I get donations from the thing that I like the most is that many users with their donations, they'll send a small note saying how much they like Calibre, how much it helped them. And a lot of these donations are from really old people. Because like I said, ebook readers, one of the great features is that you can increase the font size. And for people with weak eyesight, that's a huge advantage. And so, I myself am a pretty geeky person. I'm very, very familiar with computers. I've been programming since the age of 5. But to me, the fact that old people who may not be that comfortable with computers are comfortable using Calibre is a great thing. And that's one of my goals, is keep Calibre while being powerful, also easy enough to use for people who are not so technically proficient.
I see in India specifically there are many authors or publishers or content writers. They don't have any platform where they can publish their contents. That might be in any languages. So do you think this platform in future might be where you can making a platform where contributors in terms of writers or authors, they are publishing their content and readers are utilizing their services by some paid services or might be free?
So you can, for example, publish ebooks on Amazon.in. I think Flipkart also has an ebook. They sell ebooks. But yeah, that is an opportunity in India. I mean, there isn't a really good, especially for multilingual content in languages other than English. That's an opportunity that's there. It's not one that I'm interested in personally. I hate selling stuff. But yeah,
selling means it is just a platform. It doesn't matter whether to sell or not. But I'm saying they need a platform where they can publish their contents or books.
Yeah, no, that is an opportunity. There is space for that in India at least. I mean, in the US, for example, there's Smashwords, which does a lot of that. Amazon itself, of course, has their digital publishing program. So, but in India, I think there is an opportunity to do that, especially for Indian languages.
Thanks.
Hello. How Calibre is different from FlyBooks on Mac?
I'm sorry, different from?
Calibre is different from iBooks on Mac.
How is it different? Well, so iBooks, so Apple, while they make great products, my criticism for them is that their products tend to only operate with other Apple products. Their interoperation story is not good. So iBooks, for example, will only work with devices, iPods, iPads, iPhones. So Calibre works with all sorts of devices. You can take any device and plug it into your computer and connect to it and allow you to read the book and convert the book to whatever format that device likes. And of course, Calibre's library management features are much more powerful than iBooks. That's because of that user-driven focus. So users over the years have demanded more power in managing their ebook collections. So there are people out there who like to collect books. Traditionally, you would have a house full of books, bookcases lining the walls. In the modern era, people collect ebooks, and people that are book collectors really like to have powerful features. So, for example, one of the features that make Calibre powerful is the ability to add your own columns to the Calibre interface. Supposing you want to add a column for your personal rating or for a genre or a second series, you can do that. It's called custom columns in Calibre. Now, this custom columns feature was actually contributed by a Calibre user, Charles Haley. He opened a bug report and said that I would like to have this ability to add my own columns. I said, sure, it's a good idea in principle, but at the moment I don't have the time to do it. So he went ahead and did it, and contributed to Calibre. And today he's one of Calibre's key contributors. And to address Jordan's question of income, he actually writes an Android app called Calibre Companion that is paid for, that he gets all the income from. So that's one way that he has monetized his work in Calibre. So yeah.
Yeah, yes, thanks. Sorry,
what's your take on DRM, digital rights management, and I have seen plugins which actually remove DRM from Amazon or...
So from a technical perspective, DRM is snake oil. You actually cannot prevent copying of objects unless you get into quantum mechanics, which I think I won't do here. As far as Calibre is concerned, I personally don't. So there are no built-in Calibre plugins to remove DRM. They're not part of the official Calibre plugin index either. But there are sites out there that host Calibre plugins that you can install into Calibre that use the generic interfaces that Calibre provides to remove DRM. And I think that if you buy books, you should just remove DRM from it. I mean, personally, whenever I buy a book from, say, Amazon, I remove the DRM the first thing I do before reading it. So, so DRM is snake oil. It's about the only good thing about DRM from a corporate perspective is that it encourages locking. So it makes it harder for your users, your readers to migrate from your platform to another platform because they can't take their books with them. But as far as the stated purpose of DRM, which is to prevent copyright fraud, it's snake oil. It does not meet those goals.
Do you get any legal threats from Amazon?
No, like I said, Calibre itself does not remove DRM. So, it's like saying that supposing somebody writes a program that removes DRM, and that runs on Windows. It's not Microsoft's liability that somebody has written. Similarly, it's not Calibre's liability that somebody uses Calibre as a platform to write a plugin that removes DRM. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great, thanks. Thanks, Kovid, for the enlightening talk.
There was one more question there.
Oh, sorry.
Is that person liable for writing that removing of DRM?
It depends on what country he's in. So there's no simple answer. So in the US, it would be yes. The DMCA would make it illegal to. Actually, it's illegal to distribute tools that remove DRM. It's not actually illegal to write them. So yeah, if he was based in the US, he would be liable. If he was based in Russia, I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, each country has its own laws. I'm not an expert on.
Have you written one?
No. And if I did, I wouldn't admit it. So no, but I actually have not written a DRM removal tool. Okay. Any more questions? All done. Thank you.
Great, thanks for it.